First of all, everybody, I hope you're doing well. It's January 18th, and instead of sitting at Blake Street Tavern and consuming calories, we're all snowbound today, and I hope everybody's doing well. It's snowing like heck here in Central Park. But this is a great example of how the virtuals can really help us. Instead of having to postpone a meeting, we're all used to this in the work world now. You just jump in and you do a virtual. In fact, my whole morning went from meetings in downtown Denver to virtuals. So we have a number of topics to discuss. I've got some fun things to chat about today and try to bring everybody a little closer together as a group. Also want to make some of you aware of some things maybe you're not aware of, and that's really my biggest goal today. So let's get started. Welcome. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Dan Evans. I'm the president of the Rocky Mountain Chapter and also on the Worldwide SABR Board. And I want to start things off by talking a little bit about our plans for this year. We are going to hold more virtuals. We're going to hold 5, 6, 7 more virtuals on a variety of subjects for a couple of reasons. We can get guests who don't live in the Rocky Mountain region. And secondly, we can really get better outreach and bring people who can't attend a 12 o'clock meeting on a Wednesday afternoon downtown. And those people can attend whether it's an afternoon or a night. So I just want you all to be aware. There's a number of board members on this call. We've talked about it. So first thing I want to talk about is the upcoming SABR Analytics Conference. It's going to be held March 10th to the 12th in Phoenix. The costs are $395 for a member, $495 for a non-member, and students, a high school or college student, can get in for $150. And you also get a membership for the year as a student. You also get a Rapsodo certification, which rocks, by the way. It'd be a really cool thing to have. And you also get access for a calendar year. So if you're a high school or college student, that is a great deal with SABR. SABR Analytics Conference is amazing. I've been to probably 10 of them. It's really great. But this year there's even an added step, and I want to make you all aware of it. The WBC is going on at the same time in Phoenix at Chase Field, March 11th to the 15th, literally the same window. It's the United States, Canada, Colombia, Mexico, and Great Britain all involved. The American team plays every night during that 5-day period. So as a result, you could do the analytics conference and do the WBC at the same time. 2 daily games, 12 and 6 or 7 o'clock. So, literally you could walk from ASU to Chase Field easily. I've done it many, many times. So I just want to make you aware of it. But I also want to make you aware that on February 17th, the price goes up on the SABR Analytics Conference, and it goes up $150. So if you want to go, buy between now and February 17th. So that's number one. Number two, hello to all. Very cool, Dixie. So that means you're near the Fen right now. Another thing, just a heads up, the SABR board is being expanded from 8 to 10 people. And we as a board wanted to get new life, fresh blood, younger thinking, new thoughts, people who aren't on the 8-person current board. The board is thriving right now. There's some great things going on. But there is something in your email inbox regarding the changes in the bylaws. And I just want you to be aware the reason for that is trying to bring more people into decision-making roles. The election will be this upcoming spring. So just stay in touch with your emails. You'll see more.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Let me clarify. That's SABR National, not SABR Rocky Mountain, for anybody that might be confused on that.
Very correct. Thank you, Curtis. We are not expanding. We have a current board. We're not changing our bylaws, but the SABR national bylaws are going up by 2, and the election will be this upcoming spring. It's a good call. If you haven't been to the WBC, I'll just tell you the WBC is one of the most fun things I've ever attended. I've been overseas to see all of them, and I've been at the final for every WBC along with many of the regionals. It is an absolutely spectacular event. It is win at all costs for the countries involved. A lot of people think the American team, the USA team, is easily going to win this thing. They're not even the #1 rated team. Japan is #1, Taiwan 2, Korea 4, Mexico 5. So this is not going to be a cakewalk for Team USA. So I just wanted to bring that up. SABR has been able to acquire a thing called the Rucker Archive, 80,000 digital images dating back to the turn of the century, 1901. Baseball video, baseball digital shots. It's absolutely remarkable. I've browsed it in part of my board duties for national. It will be amazing for research, for social media posts. So just want you to be aware, 80,000 digital posts needs to be done, needs to be assigned, needs to be digitally assigned to names and people. As a result, they're looking for volunteers. If you have any interest, it's fascinating to look through. Contact any of us on the board. We'll forward you to the right person. And as a result, you can help in the volunteer span. This is going to be a lot of fun. So just wanted to make you aware. Alex, if you could screen share now, the first thing we were talking about regarding the SABR research committees. I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
trying to heighten awareness here, folks, because I think a lot of people come to the luncheons and you're not fully aware. And Charlie, one of us will get back to you. If you put your contact information in the chat, we'll make it a point that somebody will get back to you. I'm just trying to heighten everybody's awareness because we sit around and we talk at the lunches, but we never talk about other things that SABR has to offer. I put together a list of 35 different research committees that are available and happening right now. You don't need to join through the chapter, you join individually. So as a result, you can see there's something from the dead ball era. You know, I know Chip loves things for before the turn of the century. There's people who love landmarks, people who love women in baseball, people who love Negro Leagues research. It's all there. And I don't think we do a good enough job as a chapter talking about all the availability that there is from a SABR standpoint that has nothing to do with our chapter lunches, our chapter dinners, our emails. Chapter research is great, but this is individual. For me, this is a baseball buffet. If all of us on this call right now went into the portal, we'd pick a bunch of different things. I see things on this I would never be a part of, but there's other things that I absolutely love. To me, let SABR be what you want it to be. Don't make it just a once a month luncheon where that's the only interaction you get for your money on an annual basis. There's so much more. There's so much more. Just little things. I'll give you an example. The oral history research is unbelievable. Listening to the actual participants talk about moments. Oh my God, it's so fantastic. Biographical research, unbelievable. There's so many things that are available from SABR on a daily basis. It's not just the weekly newsletter from Jacob Pomrenke. It's things like horsehide trivia. I don't know how many of you even are aware of it, but if you subscribe to a thing called horsehide trivia, it's spelled just like you think, horse, HIDE, trivia at AOL.com. You get placed on a daily trivia email. It is fantastic. It is a great way to kick your friend's butt over trivia because somebody's doing all the homework for you. You might get some of the answers right. You might get a lot of the answers wrong. But this is a good example of things that are available on, on the SABR platform that have nothing to do with just our lunch. Our lunch basically is whipped cream on the top. There's so much more that everybody gets worldwide. I'm just trying to tip you off to it. So now you've seen the research committees. You can see Patrick's note about horsehide trivia. It's absolutely amazing, and he's right. When people pass away, they give you information, but very candidly, they're some of the best trivia questions you could ever imagine, and it's just a heck of a lot of fun to get it. Every week, they come up with a new theme and then new questions, and it's just a really fun thing to be a part of. Alex, you can pull that down now from the screen share. Really, more than anything, I just wanted to make everybody aware of what's out there. If you have any further questions, we can send this to you on a group email and you'd have all the committees. SABR Day plans. SABR Day is technically Saturday, February 4th, but most chapters are celebrating SABR Day on a different day, coinciding with something that as a chapter makes a lot of sense. I gave it a lot of thought, talked to all the board members. We met about this twice already. And I've decided that SABR Day this year, hold this date, hold Sunday, February 5th at 12 o'clock Mountain Time, an in-person SABR Day session at Jason Hirsch's Fast Performance in Denver. I've had extensive talks with Jason, and what I want to do is give some of you a better idea about analytics so you fully understand it, you get it, you hear something, and now it makes sense. Everything's in a vacuum. For many of you, no one has ever sat down and said, this is what that really means, and this is how you derive that. So what I thought is go to Fast Performance, fire up all the analytic information along with Jason's tutelage, his guidance, his mentoring, his teaching about hitting and pitching. And then you start to see how today's player and how today's game, how the information is assimilated. Instead of fighting analytics, start to grasp what it's all about. You might be really surprised. It might be really simplistic and might not be the enemy. Throughout my career, I've had scouts and baseball people fight things. And then when they understood them, they didn't fight them anymore because they understood them. I think in many cases, people fight analytics due to ignorance. And I'm not saying ignorance in a negative, destructive manner from me towards you. It's just a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding. Manny and I have talked about having something on the website on a monthly basis where you learn a stat and you start to understand what that stat really means. For us, getting together as a group at the Fast Performance place, you'll start to understand certain things about spin rate, about some of the Rapsodo release points, about movement, about location, about tunneling. And as hitters, you'll start to understand bat speed. You'll understand launch angle. You'll understand staying in the zone longer. being able to get to certain pitches. That's how the game is done today. Scouts scout, analytics people analytic. The good organizations mesh those. But the key thing is there's stuff out there every day that I'll bet a lot of you don't understand. And because you don't understand it, it just sounds like a foreign language to you. We do this. Some 16-year-old kid is working out at Jason's place, or a college kid is working out on a Saturday or Sunday, and he's going to talk to them about how to get better. And one of the ways people communicate that in 2023 is using analytical information. Now, I'll tell you, as a person who's been in analytics since the early 80s, all it does is take the subjectivity further out of the equation. It makes things a little bit more measurable. And as a result, the tangible thing for a player is so much easier to correct. The great big league organizations do it. They assimilate their players and their staff into it, and hence they're better. Whenever you see today that somebody got picked off the scrap heap and turns out to be an elite player with somebody else, it's usually because they saw something scouting wise or analytically that somebody was willing to bet on. What I want you to do is I want you to go to our thing on SABR Day with an open mind, and I think you'll benefit from it. I think you'll learn how the teachers teach and how the players hear things, and hear things that are not only tangible, but usable immediately. I think it's going to be a fascinating thing. Jason being a former big league player, this is something we talked about years ago. There you go, Patrick points out, Brian Sabian, and many people in organizations try to keep the coaches and the analytics people in the same dock. Teams that don't do that don't succeed. So I encourage you to attend. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. One thing that I give Jason a lot of credit. He is carte blanche for us that day. We can just hang out, watch what's going on, listen to what he's going to talk to the players about, listening to what he's telling them from either a instructive standpoint or from an analytics standpoint. And I think then when you hear things and read things in the upcoming season, you're going to get it. And you go, I get that. A 2,200 spin rate four-seamer is not what we want from the Rockies' fourth starter. It's a deathly addition in a Coors Field environment. You'll actually be more inclined to have opinions because you'll have more facts. So again, it's noon on Sunday the 5th. I love it, Doug. There's sleepover cots outside Fast Performance. So just wanted you to be aware of that. Trying to do things a little differently and just trying to get you better educated on today's game. And I can tell you, as someone who's led organizations, it's okay to not be okay with certain information. We're going to try to get you to the point where you're better. Okay. There are big league managers and GMs that get it completely. And there are others that ask people to help them and just go, John, what does that mean? And everybody in the room is okay with that. If you're just incrementally better on the 5th of February, SABR Day was a positive day for all of us. And we'll do things during the course of the year to point back to some of the things we're going to do on the 5th. So again, the 5th at noon, we'll send you information. It's free. And for a lot of you, we'll be happy to hear the last point about it. And that is our game of catch will be held and will go on. So get your equipment contracts between now and February 5th and go out and get a little loose. We'll have Advil on the premises, or a leave too. There'll be the capsules and whatever. So we'll be good on that. Patrick, if you could talk for a moment about the Denver situation for next Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, we so couple years ago, just before the pandemic, as crazy as it seems, January of 2020, we lived in a normal world that we thought would stay as normal as it could possibly be. It did not, but we all gathered for the announcement for Larry Walker's 10th and final time on the Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. And lo and behold, he was inducted, and it was, probably one of the best and most exciting moments as a fan. I think a lot of us have experienced, other than being at Game 4 of the 2007 NLCS, where the Rockies beat the Diamondbacks. That's the closest that we have to winning a World Series, is winning the National League. That was kind of one of those moments of having our franchise acknowledged as being legitimate. Like, hey, there's finally a Rocky in a Hall of Fame. So we're going to get together again next Tuesday, January 24th. That's when the announcement by the Baseball Hall of Fame is going to be about Todd Helton's candidacy. Will he be inducted this summer or not? Tuesday next week is when it goes down. And so we're going to meet at the DNVR bar. I'll put that information in our chat. It's 2239 East Colfax Ave in Denver. And, my company, besides, covering all the major sports here in Denver, and as well as CU and CSU, we also have a bar, and we sell shirts, and we do all kinds of things. So we're going to have a big watch party, and our doors will be open at 3:30. So if you want to get there early, the announcement is going to be made, I think, pretty close to 4:00. I was going back from my memory and looking at different timelines at 4:15. It's one quick commercial break, and then boom, they're announcing the results. As of right now, Todd Helton is at 79.3% of all of the public ballots, close to about half of the ballots that are known to be submitted. It could go either way. He's sort of in the exact same spot numbers wise as Larry Walker was. So we don't know what will happen, but it's almost 50-50 at this point. Worst case scenario, we still have a great time. We're able to gather and see each other. There's already a couple people I know from this group that will be there. We're going to give away some free shirts because we make some cool Rockies gear and other sports. You'll get to hang out at the bar. We got really good food. We have a chef that ended up creating our entire menu that worked with the Nuggets and worked with, Carmelo Anthony, Nikola Jokic over the years and all that stuff. So I'll put that information in the chat. Again, it's the DNVR bar next Tuesday, 3:30, special opening time for it. If you go online, you'll see it says 4:00, but we'll be open at 3:30 for this. And if this is something that, you're interested in, or if you're going, or you're still kicking it around, you can also mention that in the chat, because it could convince somebody else to end up coming out. And we're hoping to do more of these things during the course of the season. And I know sometimes Blake Street Tavern isn't always open for us at lunchtime. Maybe we could move our meetings over to the DNVR bar, so we can get together with maybe a more centrally located a place to eat. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous because it's going to be close. It really could go either way if he gets in or not. But that's next Tuesday at 3:30 at the DNVR bar, 2239 East Colfax Ave.
Outstanding. Patrick, thank you so much. Joe Adona, I see you on this call, which is great. I'm going to give a shout out to Joe. Joe revamped our website. Manny, Joe, and I got together along with the board. We singled out what we wanted to do. Joe jumped on it, did a fabulous job. And Joe, if you could say a few words, if you could edit your thoughts just for the sake of time. If you want to screen share, great. But it's really important that everybody knows that our website is brand spanking new and looking really darn good. So Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Dan. Actually, if I could share the screen while I talk, that would help. So let me see if I have the ability to do that.
You'd have to, I think, Alex, you would have to give him co-host duties, right? There we go. Hello.
Already taken care of, Mr. President.
Atta baby, Alex. Alex, the highest paid board member, just so everybody knows.
Could you all see this right now? You should
Yes.
be able to. All right, perfect. So as Dan mentioned, a couple weeks back, we launched a new website for our chapter. It's a complete redesign of an old site, new structure, and new navigation. I'll walk through it quickly. It's a nice start to what we're looking to accomplish, but in its current state, it's sort of like a new store that was just built. It has nice lighting, nice decoration, the aisles are nice, but the shelves don't have a lot on it. And I think the real value of the store is what's on the shelves. The real value of a website is the content. And that's what we're looking to get from the members of this chapter. So this is going to be our site collectively. Input for what kind of content we want to put in this site really needs to come from the chapter members. Collectively, you guys have so much baseball knowledge and so many good ideas to contribute to put on this site. And we're going to be looking to tap into you guys for your input and your feedback. Right now, just as a show, what we have here, we have the hero section, we have Dan's message. What I'm putting here is latest news and events. What Patrick just alluded to, what we're having coming up next week for the announcement for the Hall of Fame, our monthly baseball figurine stuff, and you can see more stuff on here as well. So latest events will always be on here. Below that, we just have a way to get people interested. We have a link to the Baseball Analytics Conference here. And if people want to, I'm interested in becoming a member of the Rocky Mountain SABR chapter, here's my information, you click submit. And then what they'll get is a nice welcome email like this. And thank you for your interest, blah, blah, blah. We have monthly luncheons, et cetera. So we want to try to, so I'm thinking the purpose of this website is twofold. First of all, it's a way for us as members of this chapter to communicate with each other, to do collaboration, to stay informed, just to stay in contact, but also it's a good marketing tool to recruit new members. And the only way to really do that is to have relevant, interesting, and fresh content on a regular basis. Right now, it's still kind of like a skeleton. I have board member bios here. And by the way, I need one from you, Patrick. No picture or bio from you yet. So if you get one across, that'd be great. And maybe some better resolution pictures from the other guys. But other things like membership. So how do I join? What's the benefits of joining SABR? But I think other things that would really help are like blog posts, original relevant blog posts. These are just samples I put out there. The slide you put up earlier, Alex, some of the categories, those are fantastic categories for blog posts. There's so many different areas we could put stories or information. We have so many people in this chapter who have some, like for instance, Chip in his 19th century stuff, or the trip Chris Moyer took last year to the minor league ballparks, or there's so many different areas that we could actually put interesting, relevant content up with more of a flavor toward local Colorado stories, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. Other ideas I have, trivia, member spotlights, book reviews, interesting links. Some of the articles that Manny and Thomas Farthing were at MLB.com, links to that. Once we have a sufficient amount of interesting, relevant content up, I could start actually marketing this website using either Google ranking or cross links or cross promotion to get people to look at it. And by virtue of that, getting more people interested in signing up for our chapter. So I mean, any feedback you guys could give, and again, Dan, I'll let you speak to this, but this is, you know, our website. I mean, it's not something that the board's respond. I'm going to look for direction from Dan and the board members on how I should update this, what the frequency and the process is, but the real content of this, the information that goes here, really should come from the chapter members. So, Dan, any thoughts on this?
Joe, fabulous. You know, for me, the biggest thing here is if you're looking to contribute, we're there. We would love our membership to you know, do a group think here. You know, if you're the only person who wants to talk about BABIP and its differences on the West Coast and the East Coast, sea level or at altitude, here's the cool thing. We can start pointing to that and talking about, hey, our member Chris Cohen wrote a great thing about altitude and its effect on breaking balls. Well, all of a sudden, we can be one of the experts and something that somebody points to. And I want to encourage everybody, this is a volunteer situation. This is not the 9 people on the board. This is anybody and everybody. And if you're a student or you want to be published, hey, here's your opportunity right here. So Joe, if you could give everybody your email address, both in the chat and right now, it'd be fabulous. And then everybody would know how to get in touch with you.
And Dan, also, I think it might be helpful if Alex would send out an email to the entire chapter saying, hey guys, we're launching a new website, take a look at it, need your input. And you can wordsmith it as you want. So not just the members who are in attendance now in the Zoom, but all of our chapter members are where we have this site and how they could contribute.
That's an awesome idea.
I'd be happy to do
Yet,
that.
yet another duty, Alex. Nicely done. Joe, but more than anything, Joe, thank you from all of us. You just made our website better, and we're the ones who are going to benefit from it. So can't say thank you enough on that.
My pleasure. I enjoy it.
Awesome. All right, now we're going to have some fun. Not that the earlier stuff wasn't fun. So Greg Petty has his hand up. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say how good that looks, Joe, and I think this is going to be a tremendous step forward for the chapter. One thing I think we can contribute, and I'll provide this, but I'm not sure that people know this. I've taught baseball classes in the past, and one of them was about how Denver was able to attract MLB to come here. And through that, I worked with, talked to people at History Colorado, and they have done a video oral project of how baseball came. And they have something like 30 interviews with the key people that made that happen. It's really terrific, and that's accessible by the public to listen to Roger Kinney, one of our members, or the folks in the legislature who are still living that made that happen. Montfort's part of that, but there's also a lot of people you never heard of that's part of that. So they have preserved that, and I think they did a great service. Neil Macy was a part of the pair that, and I'm blanking on the woman legislator's name right now. Anyway, I wanted to let you all know that that existed, and I think we should let our whole membership know when that happens too. I'll feed that to you and Alex if you don't know about that, Dan.
Yeah, and Greg, maybe we could be a portal for them to just another link, another spot to
That's
just
what I think.
co-promote. Yeah, we're not trying to make money off of it. We're just
No,
trying to
they'd
make
love
everybody
to have
aware.
that. Jason at History Colorado, their creative director, would love us to participate in sharing this information.
Awesome. That's awesome. One of you sent a direct message wondering what this hat is. It's the Montreal Royals. It's an Ebbets Field flannels hat. It's Jackie Robinson's minor league hat. So Ebbets Fields, I love Ebbets Fields. I think I have 100 of their hats in the closet. Kathy doesn't know how many I have, and I'm kind of happy about that. So now I'm going to have a little fun. Going to open it up. I wanted to make sure the administrative details got out there and informed you. So I want everybody to edit their thoughts, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit. What one player in today's game do you love to watch play? And let's edit our thoughts, but I'd love to hear who you like to watch. Open your mic, pop out there. Who is it? Quick why, let the next person jump in.
I'll start, Dan. It's Nolan, just because I got to watch him so much here, and I think he's just a complete baseball player. I love the way he plays the game, and I love defense, and there's nobody better at defense than Nolan. So
I love
Agree
it.
with-
Kurt Sinclair just dropped in the chat room also. He's agreed. He agrees with on Nolan also.
He's like, I equate him to Michael Jordan in the way that Michael Jordan would do something and you'd be like, damn, he can't do anything better than that. But then like 2 days later, he does something that just, he's a complete stop and watch player. And he always is doing something where you're just like, wow. And you think you've seen it, but then like you said, a couple weeks later, you see something again, and you're like, damn, that's pretty good.
Great hat, by the way, Kurt.
Thank you.
Nolan 1, Tatis number 2.
Which Tatis?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of his, but I sure like to watch him play.
For me, it would be Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he does not just one thing excellent and excels at it, but two things. And I'm sure there is multiple others if you want to equate him to being the 5-tool player. But statistically, in my lifetime, I've never seen a player like that. And he's just above everybody else.
I'm going to agree. There's a lot of exciting players to watch. Acuna Jr. is great. Julio Rodriguez is great. There's a lot of young, exciting players to watch who just really, you can't take your eyes on them. But I agree. I mean, no one's ever done what Ohtani's done before. I mean, at the plate and on the mound. I mean, he's otherworldly. And Dan, you made an argument once this guy should be a perennial MVP. And it might be hard to make an argument against that. But you talk about players that really captivate your interest. I mean, in our life, maybe in any lifetime in the history of baseball, no one player has been able to do it with that level of consistency. So
The rule for me on something like this is you might never see it again from someone else. And so Arenado, he might go down as the greatest defensive third baseman of all time. I know Brooks Robinson is going to be the comp there, but if you look at it pound for pound, if you look at the things that Nolan does, I've heard people say that they've seen Brooks Robinson and Nolan Arenado is better, and it's incredible. And then Ohtani also, I agree with that one. He's doing things. He's past Babe Ruth now. In terms of the length of time that he's done what he's done to the two-way stuff, and that's just unbelievable. He's a freak of baseball nature, and we may never see that again.
I've got Nolan Arenado, but it's probably because I'm biased, maybe after being spoiled and getting to see him for so long. Ohtani is a unicorn, and he should probably be the MVP every year, slam dunk, no matter who breaks a somewhat silly, and hopefully that's not controversial, American League record, not MLB, but American League record. Tatis Jr., I forgot what it looks like when he plays because it's been so darn long, but he is towards the top of the list. But on the pitching side, I would have to go with Max Scherzer because that guy's a maniac. And you never know what's going to happen. If they want to check his belt and check his glove, he's going to flip out. Pulls pants down like Steve Lyons over there on first base. Like, he is interesting, entertaining to watch on the pitching side, besides being probably the best starting pitcher of his generation.
I think I agree with it. I think I agree with everyone so far. However, I think my favorite's probably Trey Turner. I love his bat to ball skills, sneaky big pop, speed, yet he still kind of has that new age swag, but he could be like a vintage player. So I think that'd be my guy.
We miss you, Robert. I hope you're doing well in Boston.
Likewise. Thank you.
I'm going to go a different direction. I like individual seasons that are kind of fun. So like last year, I really had a ball watching Pujols come down the stretch and watching how he handled that and all the pressure and how much fun he was having.
Dan, it's really hard for me to pick just one, but the first one that popped into my head, and this is hard to say as a Red Sox fan, but I'm a baseball fan first, is Aaron Judge. If I've got a game on and I'm puttering around the house, I will stop whatever I'm doing to watch him hit. I mean, he's just an amazing physical specimen, and he's got a beautiful swing, and he clobbers the ball. And I think I have a stronger affinity because I was lucky enough to be in Texas last October when he hit number 62.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, that was to complete, to be current again on my major league ballparks. And I'd been putting it off because of COVID and everything else. And I had a plan to just go down for the afternoon game and fly back. And Nick Groke said, well, that's very jet setty of you. and so that was one of the possibilities. But I figured as long as I'm going down, they played a split doubleheader, I might as well see both games. And he hit it in the second game.
Awesome.
And he's 6'8" and a very good defensive player.
Yeah.
And a tremendous guy.
And
A great guy.
Seems to be, yeah.
Dan, we also have a few in the chat. I'm happy to read those if you'd like. Please
do, Alex.
So Ken Reed also agrees on Ohtani, a unique talent. Charlie Palmer agrees with Juan Soto. that is his most exciting player. Jared Whitaker came up with an interesting one. Adley Rushman, who I believe is the catcher for Baltimore, or is that correct? Yeah, Baltimore Orioles.
Yes,
So that's
sir. Future Hall of Famer.
Yep. Dixie Torongo. Sorry, Dixie, if I mispronounced your last name. Apologies if your audio is not working, but you said George Springer, who is always having fun swinging and diving for a ball. So that's a good one.
Well,
Anybody else?
I'd vote for Shohei, but let me throw out two names I haven't heard. Well, I have heard one of these names, but if you appreciate greatness, I mean, the greatest hitter of our age, Mike Trout, is a guy you like to see hit. I like to see hit. And some guy I'm looking forward to seeing more of is Julio Rodriguez. He's tied for the fastest player in baseball for sprint speed. And the catch he made against Houston, going from center field into right, amazed me. And you know what? He wasn't even fully extended. I mean, I don't think anybody thought he was going to catch that damn ball. I am really looking forward to seeing what he can do, especially defensively, but also on the bases. That guy is going to be fabulous, I think.
Whole package.
I have a few, if you will. Greetings, everyone. I love
What's
to
up,
watch
Matthew?
Hey, Dan. Thanks for hosting. Thanks everybody who's helping put this on. I love Freddie Freeman. He's about as professional a hitter as they come, and he is just really fun to watch. He's always seemingly in a good mood. One guy who is probably the most controversial that we could name is Manny Machado. That guy plays the game on a Jordan type level. It seems like he's always aware of timing and is just as heads up as they come. And my favorite, who's not sure he's even allowed in the country right now, is Yasiel Puig, playing in Korea. He's still really fun for me to watch. So those three guys are probably my favorites. Blessings.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for Free Seal to get on the 25 tomorrow. It's gonna be real hard. Anybody else before we move to the next point?
I'll just throw out O'Neill Cruz too with the Pirates. He's a lot of fun, both at bat and in the field.
The best 6'3" ground out in the game today. Folks, his
I
velocity.
thought you were going to say the best
is in-
6'3" shortstop.
No, he's taller than that.
6'8".
What if you don't know, this is part of the analytics that I want to bring everybody up to speed. He from short to first is the hardest throwing shortstop in the game, and he's in the mid 90s velocity wise. And for those of you a little older who watched Dunston play, a really good friend of mine said one day that he was always scared to death that when he would hit a 6'3" ground ball and Dunston would take him out as he was hitting the bag, that the first baseman would miss it. Dunston, for me, had the best shortstop arm I have ever seen until I saw O'Neill. Does anybody
And
else
if I,
have
and
anything?
if I could say, yeah, if I could say, Dan, on O'Neill Cruz,
Yeah.
Dunston used to wind it up, and
Yes.
yeah, he threw it really hard, and you would know, Dan, because you had him, right? I mean, you had him at some point, or
Yes.
you guys had him in Chicago, and
Did.
but O'Neill Cruz just flicks the ball over there, and it's 100 miles per hour, and it's incredible. So if you haven't seen that guy, go and watch him. It's pretty amazing. I mean, if he ever starts to get things together at the plate more consistently, watch out.
Chris Moyer points out Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Shohei Ohtani. Mr. Whitaker, I give you a lot of credit because Adley Rushman, for me, is a first ballot Hall of Famer in the class of 43. He is one of the best young players I have ever seen in my career. Just absolutely spectacular makeup and great skills. Does anybody else want to drop a name in before we go to the next point?
I was going to say Pete Alonso, just based on going to the All-Star home run competition and seeing that in person that was a great event. It surprised me how much I enjoyed it more than watching on TV, because you're seeing one after the other, just hit really hard and really far, and he was on top of it, and that stood out in my memory. So thought I'd throw that out there. Made me appreciate
Great
him a
name,
little bit
John.
more.
And you know what, John, we're lucky we got a guy with that kind of personality, that skill set on a good team in that city.
Mhm.
Patrick points out Zach Veen. Zach's got to get to the big leagues before we like watching him in the big leagues. Anybody else? And then I'm going to turn to the next subject.
Well, I wrote in the chat that I'm looking for someone to replace Yadier Molina in my heart. Love watching Yadi.
But you're in retirement right now, Michael. So I mean, right? You can watch 15 games a day, right?
Yeah.
Envy. All right, I'm going to jump out to the next one. And Manny, Chris, and a few others, I'm going to need your help here. Little challenge coinciding with our SABR Day. What one statistic do you want to understand better so you gain more insight and you're more comfortable with that particular statistic? I think there's a lot of numbers out there that a lot of people don't understand. What's yours? And don't worry about not understanding. That's what we're here for. Pete, thanks for joining us. So is there a stat that you'd love some help on? And if we can't bring it to you today, we'll talk about it in our next session, or perhaps at the fast performance session. Kurt says war. Which type of war, Kurt? There's three. There's baseball reference war, there's baseball prospectus war, and there's Fangraphs war. To me,
Exactly.
it's one of the things that people get confused.
And now there's the war that MLB has created, right? Which is basically just an amalgamation of baseball reference and Fangraphs, right? Because they're using that, I think, for not for arbitration, but for like the end of season rookie of the year award. Do you get a service time? They've got their own system now.
And every club, well, I won't say every club because I know a couple I would never accuse of being in the left lane in analytics, but almost every club has their own war, internal war. Charlie points out UZR. Now there's two kinds of UZR. There's UZR and there's UZR 162, which people bounce around about. Mr. Petty, why don't you articulate what the WRC stands for?
Weighted runs created. And of course, typically you see the plus, but I understand the plus part of it. I would like to understand how they put that together and effectively. I mean, I get the concept, the general concept, but I'd like to understand what it really is telling me.
And my goal on this, Greg, and others, is I'm going to get these summarized from a group internally, and then we'll talk about it at a future meeting. I'm just trying to help everybody. These things are thrown around in baseball as if everybody understands it. And a really great assistant GM a couple of years ago said to me, "Hey, Danny, what the hell does that mean?" And I said, "No, it's cool." Told him. And he said to me, "For like 2 years in our rooms, I never had the guts to ask." And I said, "Well, you can get these things." He said, "Yeah, but everybody would have known I didn't know it." If these things are being thrown around, just know, weighted runs created is used in just about every club's war room. And I shouldn't say war room because there's 3 different wars or 4 different wars. What other ones, what other stats do you just not get and you'd love to understand better?
I saw one recently, Dan. It's a pitching stat called Sierra Skill Interactive ERA, which I have no clue what it means, and it sounds intriguing though.
It is intriguing. It'll be a lot of fun to explain it to everybody. That's awesome. Where'd you see that?
Maybe Baseball Prospectus, one of the sites. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Baseball Savant, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, you have to be a savant to watch Baseball Savant, but that might be my favorite website myself. Others.
I'd like to see the fielding independent pitching. I'm not sure what that is all about.
Okay, and again, there's two different FIPS. So we'll talk about that, Brian. Or is that Harry? Was that Harry?
It's Harry. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just,
you know,
I've seen it and I'm not sure what it means exactly. How do you come up with it? And if I'm in a front office, what's it tell me?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what it tells me, that over ERA for me. And we can explain it at a future meeting, but FIP for me, or XFIP for me, is better than earned run average, and we'll explain why. But I want to do this really well. Manny and I have talked about this in the past, is just helping everybody better understand some of these terms. So what we'll do is I'm writing notes here, and we'll just, Manny and I and Chris and a couple other people throw it out, and we'll help you. We'll help you just better understand.
I was gonna bring up D-WAR, the defensive WAR, and how that relates to, like, I assumed it was a combination to make WAR, but apparently it's not. So I was looking into, so I guess that's one I'm kind of curious how that works. Versus I think there's O-WAR too.
Yep, there's O-WAR, D-WAR, and some people use them and they offset each other. So if like you're a -5 D-WAR and a 60 O-WAR, you're a 55 on in the Hall of Fame look. Remember when Jay Jaffe talked to us last year about JAWS? I thought that was fascinating. But we'll talk about that. And John, for some people, D-WAR is the be all end all. For others, it's UZR. For others, there's very different metrics. And again, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to just bring you into 2023 from a I think a lexicon understanding, just understanding what these words mean instead of hearing it and going, I don't know what the hell that means.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thank you.
The other day, a friend of mine runs NBA.com, and there was a metric on there about Steph Curry, who's easily my favorite hooper. And I texted him and I said, what the hell does that mean? And he laughingly said, you're about the 10th person this year who's asked me that question. So for me, it's better that we use this platform to learn and educate each other. And then some of our conversations might be even, a Helton conversation might be even more intriguing if we can use more of the analytics. Other stats.
Yeah, and let me just point out that we had, in Greg and I's class, we had Dan come in and talk to us via Zoom, and it was probably the most fascinating class that we had in 2 years, explaining some of this. So, man, this is spot on. I can't wait to get into this in a little more detail, because I still don't understand most of it.
Obviously, Brian cashed my check, so that's good. Thank you, Brian. And folks, this is no lie. There are a lot of people sitting in big league baseball operations offices and media relations offices that are asking the same questions. They go down to the analytics department. Hey, explain this to me. What does this mean? Every organization I joined, I had to go down and I had to find out, okay, typically you just ask, hey, Brian, what do you guys use? What are your metrics that you really use? And if there's ones I don't understand, let's talk about them so I get it. I understand it. I went to the Blue Jays and they were doing things with spin rates and axis that nobody else was doing. And I loved it because I understood it, but I also knew there were other people who didn't get it. So by educating them, people thought differently. One of the great examples is Marco Estrada, who was just a washed up 5th starter with a high spin rate. And he won, I think, 3 playoff games for us. So anybody else have another stat, and we'll put these together, and within the month, we'll either put them on the website or we'll circulate that among the group. Anybody else?
Dan, one stat that, I don't know if it's a stat, but it's a more of an advanced metric that I've become kind of recently obsessed with is pitchers tunneling of their pitches, pitching tunneling. I just feel, and the combination of how certain pitches work with a certain tunneling aspect. So, I know there's not, I don't know about a metric for it, but I just, it's fascinating to see certain pitchers tunnel certain pitches and how effectively they do it. Like with case in point, Sandy Alcantara, with his combination of his fastballs and changeup, the tunneling is just, it's virtually impossible for a batter to pick that up when it comes in. And that's why he was so effective. So I just wanted to touch on that. Thank you.
And Alex, Jason Hirsch is going to talk about that on the 5th.
Hey,
It's one of the
Danny,
discussion points.
Thank
will he
you.
also talk about seam shifted wake?
Oh, awesome. I love it. Okay, so seam shifted wake, Mr. Petty, was something that was brought out in last year's SABR Analytics Conference. And there were 30 big league organizations, and 25 of the 30 contacted me afterwards saying, hey, can we get this information from the analytics conference? It's absolutely fascinating. Greg, that's a gold star. It is, to me, one of the most interesting things in analytics today, and we'll make sure that that Jason talks about it. And it's absolutely fascinating. If I'll find last year's presentation, and I'll make sure you can all watch it, because it just changes the way you look at the game. And it's not something you need a master's from MIT. You can just digest it very easily once you understand it. And we'll explain it, but just think of it as throwing a ball, and which way the ball moves is dependent on various factors. And seam shifted wake is, the whole world will make more sense to you. It really will. To me, it's one of the best things I think that's been added to the game. Anybody else before we go to the next point?
I just had a funny thought, Dan. What if we were able to teleport John McGraw or Connie Mack from the past into this Zoom session? What would their reaction to this discussion be, you think?
Well, Connie Mack would want to know whether or not he could get a suit contract, like a merch contract. And McGraw would just spit 24/7.
About Christy Matheson's FIP and his Sierra. I mean, Jesus, the game's changed so much.
No. Well, you know what? I don't think the game has changed. I think we know more about the game now. I mean, and I'm just saying, from my standpoint, things make more sense to me now than ever before. And I've been searching for answers my whole career. And it seems like every year there's something that comes along where I go, wow, okay, that's awesome. Now that all makes more sense. Like, everybody used to talk about catching exchanges and pop time. And now Baseball Savant does it for you. They give you velocity, exchange, pop time, and all of a sudden, all of us can go on Baseball Savant, Joe, and we know it, and it's not
You're on mute, Dan.
Yeah, Danny, you've muted.
Okay, hold on. I've got
We got you now, Dan.
second, Alex. Okay, I'm back. All right, so let's talk now about the Hall of Fame announcement, which Patrick explained, next Tuesday. So just a little heads up, we talked about a lot of players. I personally think there's 21 active Hall of Famers right now, people that'll be in Cooperstown down the line. And I wasn't kidding about Rushman, because I think Rushman is going to be that guy. It's a fascinating exercise. It's something that we're going to talk about at some point during the year, where you're going to come in with your Hall of Famers. One of my mentors did this to me early in my career, and his reasoning was this: if you don't appreciate great, then why watch? And that has stuck with me my whole career, we talked about players. I didn't tell you mine. Mine are Otani, who I'm absolutely obsessed with for about 8 years. And I saw him as a high school kid in Japan. I became obsessed with him. And my other one is Trout, because I think what we're seeing in Trout is one of the greatest players in the history of the game. And I think we're getting to the point where we're taking him for granted. I have never seen anybody hit fastballs like him. Admittedly, I'd also love to watch Acuna, and I try to every at bat because I love his flair. But Alex sent around a ballot for everybody. And what we're going to do is, if you haven't answered that yet, we are going to unveil, I think for most guys, I was talking to Frank Thomas this morning, and he said it's far more important for him to be honored as a Hall of Famer by the Rocky Mountain SABR chapter than it is for Cooperstown. So I'm sure the players are all sitting back wondering where we are on this. So if you haven't submitted your ballot yet, and unlike Mr. Petty and I grew up in Chicago, where you can vote early and often, and it's a way of life, you only get one ballot. Send them to Alex between now and Sunday if you haven't already. And then we will distribute the winners either Sunday or Monday. And we'll announce from our sake who are the future Hall of Famers and who's going to be inducted in Cooperstown. Y'all met Josh Rawich last year, good friend of mine, worked with him. And my guess is after he sees our tabulation, he might just skip the Tuesday show and might just announce it a little bit early. So, but I wanted to make a pledge, and that is, I don't think Helton's getting in. I talked to a couple guys who run websites about the Hall of Fame, and they usually lose 8 to 11 points on the public. So I think Helton's going to fall short. I think he's going to be in the upper to mid 60s. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do what we did for Walker and get Helton to the finish line. Stir the Rockies a little bit, because the Rockies really are not interactive with their former players and the Hall of Fame, and make a pledge to help his candidacy, make people aware of his candidacy, not do anything we're uncomfortable with. As an example, I think Walker was a better player than Helton, and I just think he was, and that's subjective again. But I think if we can help Helton get to the finish line in 24, it's yet another way we can use our website to our advantage, and use our website to be more of an authority figure overall. So I think what we have here is a guy who merits strong consideration. He's a heck of a player. He's one of the greatest players, ever to play for the Rockies, regardless of your opinion. He's in the top 5 regardless. So if he doesn't get in, what I'd love to do as a chapter is try to give him the best chance of getting in instead of having to wait to the 9th or 10th ballot. I think, Patrick, this is the 5th for him. Is that right? 4th? Yeah. So if we can get him a little closer to the finish line, he's going to pick up a lot of steam this year. So get your ballots to Alex. And then what we'll do is we'll unveil it. I think Monday we'll have a bigger audience, so we'll probably do it Monday morning. So again, start taking a look at current players and who you think might get in. I say 21, and I think there's another 6 or 7 guys who are going in that just retired, guys like Posey. I'm not sold on Molina myself. I think he's got 41 WAR. Never won a batting title, 270 hitter, but everybody has their own opinions on stuff. So now I want to open it up.
Mr.
Yes,
President, just to let you know, I will send a follow-up email to all members and followers, so it's documented they have an extension of opportunity to vote.
Got it. And Alex can be bought. There are certain beers he likes, and if you throw a pizza at him, you'd be amazed what you can get his way. Actually, if you give him seasoned tater tots, he's especially easy to coerce. All right, so I want to get to an open discussion. And the first thing that I would like to do before that, are there any new members on this call today? Somebody who hasn't attended a previous Rocky Mountain SABR session? If so, I'd love you to open up your mic and say hello. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'd love to say hello and we'd love to welcome you to our chapter.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jared Whitaker. I am from Colorado originally, but I go to school in Oregon. I play baseball at George Fox University. And this is my first one. So I'm kind of glad that it went to virtual because now I gotta be here with all you guys, and yeah, but I'm enjoying it.
So Jared, what's the best hat you have in that closet?
The best hat I have in it?
Yeah. We're hat
see.
wearers here. We got some people who have rocking hats, so we want the best hat. So you don't even know Patrick's hat.
This is probably my
Patrick's like-
favorite one. It's kind of a
Hello.
retro, like a Rockies logo, but a little bit different colors. And yeah, so that's probably my favorite hat. I think the one that I use the most. I guess most of the time I'm wearing my team's baseball hat. But yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
Jared,
Awesome.
what's your
What
connection
conference?
with us?
I'm sorry.
What's your connection to Denver or the Rocky Mountain region?
So I'm from Fort Collins area.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
And Brian, was it Brian or Harry? One of you guys told me about Jared.
It was me, Dan. Yeah, Jared is
Yeah.
the son of a guy I used to work with, and big baseball guy, and he's just gotten obsessed with SABR. And he's one of the young guys we need to keep involved here. So any way we can help him, especially after the season, I think he's looking for an internship next summer somewhere in baseball. Is that right, Jared?
Yeah, it is.
Jared, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll see if I can help you. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Jared, what
All right, so
position do you play?
So I I used to be a catcher, but ended up having a knee injury last year that ended my season and had surgery over the summer. So I'm an outfielder now.
Left or right-handed bat?
Left, right-handed throw. Left-handed bat.
Hello. Oh, we like you already.
Jared, what conference are you guys in again?
So we're in the Northwest Conference. It's a Division III. It's one of the only ones on the West Coast. So it's pretty much just Washington and Oregon teams. Yeah.
Pacific
You
Lutheran.
playing?
Yep. They're in our conference. We don't like them.
Playing collegiate wood bat out there at all this summer, Jared?
So this summer, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I was looking for a job first and then seeing where if I could go play somewhere, wherever that took me. Last summer, obviously I was recovering. But the year before that I did. I've done it a few times now.
Well, that's awesome. Well, welcome to our group. Anybody else? A newbie? Usually, Jared, we have you stand up on the table and sing your high school fight song, but since it's virtual, we won't do that.
I appreciate that. I don't know if we even had a fight song when I was in high school. I'm not a great singer either, so I'll spare you guys all the pain.
You should have heard Robert Gower. He got to the third stanza. It was so impressive. I will never forget that. So anybody else, any other newbies?
Hey, everybody, this is Charlie. This is my first SABR meeting in Denver for the past 8 years or so, working telecom as a day job and pursuing my master's in data science at the University of Denver in my free time, which leads me to the SABR analytics interest. So I'm registered for the conference and then looking to get the certification that comes with the registration, I think.
Yes,
Or
it
maybe that was
does.
separate.
And where are you from originally, Charlie? Where'd you grow up?
From Virginia originally, from Richmond, Virginia. So Richmond Braves fan originally before they got relocated to Gwinnett, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Well, we welcome you, Charlie. It's
Thank
great
you.
to have you here. Thanks
Yeah,
for
great to be
joining.
here.
Thanks for being a part of it.
Of course.
This is a really fun group of people. And we look forward to meeting you at an in-person event. But good luck in school too. Your hockey team's playing great.
Yeah, well, they lost the one game I was able to go to in November, so I'm glad to see they've turned it around.
Yeah, you're not allowed to go to the Minnesota Duluth games. That's not you don't get those tickets.
No, that was Omaha. They
Oh, that's
lost
right.
to, and
That's
I had
right.
to go see them. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Anybody else? Any other new members? Alex, do you see anybody who's new that's hiding on us right now?
I do not, sir. It was Jared first caught my eye, but no, I do not. I hope someone can prove me wrong, though.
Awesome. All right, so let's go to an open discussion. And I want to start it out. His name came up earlier. Earlier this week, there was a story on ESPN.com that Ohtani is going to be a glass ceiling breaker for Major League Baseball. He's already, for me, the most intriguing player who's ever played the game, to play both sides so well. He's coming in with like a 7.3 WAR this year projected. Ohtani's a free agent at the end of the year. If the Angels are not involved in the postseason situation, he'll be a trade deadline decision. And it could be one of the most interesting trade deadlines of all time with Ohtani involved. But one of the amazing things this week, and a great writer wrote a great story about what's his number? What can he attain? And the number came out, and I got a call from a team president about 5:45 in the morning, and I thought it was urgent. And he was saying, can you believe somebody wrote that Ohtani could get 500 million? He's 29 years old. And I said, dude, I'm in the mountain time zone. You're in the East Coast. I haven't got there yet. And he goes, yeah, 500 million. And I said, I'd give it to him. I'd give it to him right now. And he goes, oh my God, why did I even call you? So what I want to just open up the chat about is, how do you feel about that when you hear that number? And is he a guy that you would take a rider on something like that?
I will just interject, since I brought up Ohtani, Dan, first, and start the discussion and say I would do that also in a heartbeat. I feel that's an underpayment, and I'll just leave it at that.
When you were asking the question, Dan, before you threw out the number, I was thinking 600 actually. I'm serious. Between what he gives you both on the mound and at the plate, and at some point he's probably going to have to give up one or the other. But merchandising alone, I mean, there are other considerations here besides the age curve. This guy, like somebody called him a unicorn earlier. He's one in a lifetime, one in multiple lifetimes. So I think it's something like 600, and I think the Dodgers are going to give it to him.
I think Andrew Friedman's going to back up the biggest Brinks truck he could find to Ohtani's front doorstep and just unload whatever he wants. To Manny's point, it's not just what he has on the field. First of all, he already has a big established presence in the Los Angeles area. They love him there. It's the marketing aspect. And this guy's the biggest thing in baseball in a long time. And I think the numbers can exceed 600, I think. I mean, it's a lot, but I could see it happening.
I actually think he's 1 in 22,860. Because that's how many guys have played in the big leagues. That's it. 22,860. And I defy you to tell me there's been anyone in the modern era who even resembles him.
That's factually, that's an unassailable position. There is nobody else. And Babe Ruth is, again, he's eclipsed Babe Ruth, because Babe Ruth did this. There were a couple of seasons before he was made exclusively into a position player, where he pitched and he hit, and Ohtani's gone beyond that now.
Anybody else have any thoughts on Ohtani?
I'll share one. Go ahead.
Just quickly, when Dan threw out the 22,000 players in the history of the game, it's amazing to think we go back to 1869 or however far back that goes, and you could get every player that's ever played into a professional basketball arena if they all came back. They'd all have their own seat. That's just unbelievable to me, how few there are.
I agree with everything that's been said, but I also, as we all know, since he has two incredible skills, hitting and pitching, if he can't pitch anymore, he still will be of great value as a hitter. One person said a few minutes ago he may not be able to continue both. I think that was Joe. But he still would have a great value. It wouldn't be like if he could do one or the other, and then his skills declined in that area.
So he's almost built-in insurance policy, Francis, right?
Yes, that's the way I look at it. Now, of course, I can't even imagine these figures, but I'm sure there's good arguments for that he would be worth it.
Somebody pointed out to me this morning that George Steinbrenner brought the Yankees for $10 million in 1974. Think about that.
Let's also not forget how much money got thrown around this offseason.
That's right.
I mean, it just, you're giving Xander Bogaerts $300 million, you know, so if Xander Bogaerts is getting $300 million over 11 or whatever it was, and that takes, and so it's a combination. It's the big money taking them into their early 40s. And so if you start to kind of extrapolate that to Ohtani, yeah, like somebody even said, it could be beyond 600.
I just wanted to respond to Manny's earlier comment on Ohtani. I love the guy, and what he's done is amazing. But you know, when you compare him to Babe Ruth, you have to remember that Babe Ruth was leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else that played in that era, and oftentimes had more home runs than whole teams did. And to me, that what makes him still really amazing. And the other thing to remember is somebody is worth what somebody else will pay them. So.
And just to add, Douglas, just to add to that, what Manny said about Ohtani clip, maybe Ohtani has a clip what Ruth has done in the field. No one's ever going to have the celebrity status in baseball that Babe Ruth did. I think the obstacle that Ohtani has is the language barrier and stuff. So the marketability of Ohtani is not going to match what some other players are. On the field, I agree. He's otherworldly, and no other players like match that. But again, compared to his peers, as Douglas pointed out, Babe Ruth was leaps and bounds ahead of his peers. Plus, he had this incredible celebrity status, which I think has been unmatched in baseball since, and may never be matched again.
It's a really interesting discussion on Babe Ruth, and there's been a lot of that on Twitter lately about what could Babe Ruth do or not do in today's game. And you know, did Babe Ruth ever see a 98-mile-an-hour fastball? So I agree that Babe Ruth is the most transformational figure in the history of the game, and that's never going to change. And not only that, because he literally inaugurated a new era of the game with the home run, and yes, got Yankee Stadium built basically, and just revolutionized the game itself. There's never going to be another Babe Ruth. He is unique in a way. When you look at all the nuance to it, he's unique in a way that Ohtani can't even touch. But on the field, if Babe Ruth, and again, Babe Ruth's at the disadvantage of playing in the early, 20th century, and being hungover and having eating all he's eating is hot dogs and things like that. And so Ohtani would just destroy him. Shohei Ohtani, if you had the MLB The Show in real life, and you could have Babe Ruth here at the plate versus Ohtani, or Babe Ruth pitching to Ohtani, Ohtani would absolutely obliterate him. That being said, Babe Ruth will never be matched in terms of his impact on the game.
Well, and a cultural icon, as Joe alluded to. But many of today's major league players would crush many of the major league players from that era. So, different time, different place.
I wonder how today's hitters would fare if they had to hit a baseball that had been used for 3 or 4 innings in a row. And I think that's a pretty significant challenge because they get a new ball every pitch and the stadiums are well lit. And, there's a lot that goes into it. And that's one of the great things about baseball, but been reading a lot of kind of historical stuff lately. And that always comes to my mind in these comparisons of generations is, it's tough to capture everything that goes into it, but it's sure fun.
The other thing too is
John,
that
go ahead.
The other thing too is that you guys are seeing about 3 times the number of pitchers now than they did then, if not more. And so the different looks that guys have now, and so it's a fascinating discussion. It also goes back to the stats discussion, because a lot of the stats that we have, weighted runs created plus, OPS plus, things like that, they are designed to be able to compare across eras. So with the run scoring environment and everything like that, so that you can compare Mike Trout and Mickey Mantle. And if you haven't done that, go and do that as much as you can, because it is eerily similar what those two guys are. And so I think that if you want to go into some of those stats, like we're going to go into at some point, that's what they help with, is kind of put it on an equal playing field for all different eras, to say, and you know what, to Babe Ruth's credit, he still comes out on top in a lot of those.
Manny, where would you go to make that comparison? Would you go to baseballreference.com?
Yeah, you can go to Baseball Reference and you can actually compare guys by age, by season, by number of years in the big leagues, everything, like literally person to person. Like you can type in Mike Trout and Mickey Mantle on Baseball Reference, and they'll give you, I think his 1956, Mickey Mantle's 1956 and Mike Trout's 2016 were unbelievably similar, like crazy similar. So
Well,
to
and
John's
even
point,
if
the
you
one thing go ahead, Doug.
Oh, I was just going to say, even if you go back as early or as recently as the 50s and look at photos of fields, the grass is all ratty. The playing conditions were fairly awful. Think of equipment, particularly gloves, but shoes and bats and contact lenses. They weren't around then. So and that's what's great about some of the modern stats, is that you can compare time to time, but it was a different time in a different place, definitely. I'd love to go back, to see a game in the 20s, just to see what, I'm not big on stats, but I'm big on experience. And I would love to experience a game from back then, just to see what it was like.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see the Negro League players. I've always wanted to. I always wondered, because I read descriptions of Josh Gibson and Oscar Charlton and those guys, and it was like, there's no film, so all you've got is these secondhand accounts, reporters at the time or teammates years later trying to explain how great these players were, and we'll never know. But it would. Someday, maybe some guy will invent a time machine, go back and watch Josh Gibson hit him out of Forbes Field.
Buck O'Neill was pretty good at that.
He was great. I used to go to Kansas City purposely just to sit next to Buck for 3 days and just learn about the players from a guy who not only played against him, but then was the first Black coach and made such a difference. So it's like, I asked him, what was Ernie Banks like? And he pointed something out that I never would have thought of. He said, you didn't see a lot of the great players in their prime. You saw them in 47 forward when the doors were open. So he said, if you'd have seen some of these guys at 20 and 21, imagine the stats they would have brought on. Think of Jackie Robinson. One of my idols, one of my heroes. Baseball was his 4th best sport. And he played 10 years in the big leagues and he was done. His body broke down. Imagine if instead of playing for the Monarchs, he'd have been playing earlier. mean, that to me is the most fascinating thing of the game. I am right with Harry on that. I would have loved to have seen Satchel Paige pitch. So I wanted to bring up some too. Monty Irvin was a great player in the 40s and 50s, and one of the great Negro League players. Said something to me once on a plane ride that I just want to pass on because I think we've kind of danced around it a little bit. You know, until 1947, and really until the early 60s, we really don't know how good these guys were because they played in a different environment. They didn't go west of the Mississippi. They had day games for the most part. They weren't playing against Black and Latino players. So Monty said to me, he said, Danny, he said, you know, he says, I hear things about this guy or that guy. And he said, they faced 9 pitchers, 8 pitchers on a team. They faced the same team 20 plus times, and their environment was pretty darn easy. And he said, you know, it's a little different when today's guys land in a city at 6 o'clock in the morning and have to play a 1 o'clock day game in front of 50,000 people. You know, I think a lot of us take that for granted. I did until I traveled with a club for 20 years. And for me, it was like, how the hell are these guys going to do this today? And, you know, the train rides, they slept in sleeper cars. And I've heard stories about how much fun they had, but they always had this staccato schedule. Well, you play a 4-game series in today's big league environment, you might have 4 different starting times. You might see the whole staff in a 4-day period. That never happened in the past, ever. So I think it's a fascinating chat about just how the game can be measured, but some of the intangibles that you can't measure.
Yeah, and Danny, I think one thing to remember too is that can be easily forgotten because we can polarize it and say it's today versus everything before today. It's happening all the time. It's progressive. Like if anybody's seen 61, the Billy Crystal movie about Mantle and Maris and chasing Babe Ruth's record, there's a scene in there where toward the beginning with the reporters are trying to kind of just, you know, bait the 2 guys and talking about the record and how it's an expansion season and now you're going to have like some diluted pitching, you're going to have more games and, you know, and all that stuff. And I think it was the Maris character said, yeah, but I mean, you know, it's you know, there was another question about like, well, what if you break the record in 162 rather than 154 games like Babe Ruth did it? It's like, yeah, but like Babe Ruth didn't have to fly across the country. Babe Ruth didn't have to play night games. Babe Ruth didn't have to do this and that. So it's been happening, you know, throughout the game's history. It's not something that's just today and yesterday. It's not that black and white. It's always been happening from Ruth's time to Mantle and Maris's time to now. And it's a fun discussion. I mean, because we'll never really know, like somebody said earlier.
Anybody else have any topics, comments, thoughts, things you want to toss around? Open forum. Your option is to go out and shovel. So I don't know about you. I'm not even looking at that.
I don't
as
know
an
about
option
you,
anymore.
Dan, but I'm not going out no matter what I'm doing inside or
No.
not doing inside. I'm not
It
leaving
ain't
the house.
happening. It
Yeah,
ain't happening here either.
I'll share something that I read, and Kurt, I was going to bring you the book today that I mentioned, this the glory of their times. I was reading the chapter on Sam Jones. He pitched in the teens, the 20s, 30s. I think he pitched for the Yankees in the 20s, and he, you know, this is an account of an interview in person from the 1960s, and that's when the book was published shortly thereafter. But one thing he said is how the Yankees were so big time, I think he said, as an organization back then even. And the thing that he used as an example of to show, you know, how how they were was at the end of the season, they gave every player on the team 3 baseballs. And that was it. And you know, that was a difference maker back then, but it's I mean, the world's such a different place and the game's so different. And that just stood out to me. And I thought, you know, we'll never have it all figured out, right? But it's just fun to kind of pay attention and think about things.
Matt, I'll see you. Matthew Repplinger is going to do a discussion about history of Denver baseball at some point in 2023. If you haven't read his book's great. So I'm sorry.
Hey, Dan, this is Brian. I have two quick things to mention. Greg and I are actually going to, we've been talking about this for a long time, but I think we are going to get a baseball card subcommittee going under the local chapter. Greg and I are going to be meeting with Jason Schwartz via Zoom. And so we will be getting information out to the rest of the chapter sometime in the next month, we hope. I also just wanted to mention, you mentioned the Rucker Archives. And this is very little known Colorado baseball trivia, but Mark Rucker grew up in Colorado Springs, and my family and his family hung out all the time. Our dads were professors at Colorado College. So I know Mark, and I've gotten in touch with him since he has worked this deal out with the SABR people. And it's really interesting touching bases with a guy that I used to play wiffle ball with in his parents' front yard way back in the early 60s. So, and I encourage everybody to take a look at that Rucker Archive. There's some fascinating stuff there. I've already agreed, or I've said I would help do the Clemente portion of it. So just some fascinating stuff there, but appreciate SABR stepping up on that.
Yeah, we raised enough money to get it done in half the time we thought. Brian, that's a really cool story. And very candidly for everybody, and thank you, Joe, we're going to start an Instagram chapter site. And I plan on using those, a lot of those Rucker digital photos for some of our early stuff. It'll be just a lot of fun to add to. And I've gone through a lot of the collection. I'll tell you, Brian's right. It's absolutely super cool. They even have stuff from like Japan, where you can see Sadahiro O in high school at Waseda High School as a left-handed pitcher. And it's just unbelievable stuff. And if you want to be a part of it, I think it's going to be very rewarding down the line.
Now that you mentioned that with the baseball cards, Brian, I just remembered there is a baseball card show coming up on January 28th. That is in concert with an event that's held up here in northern Colorado at Island Grove Arena. I'm not sure the exact name, but basically it's UNC, University of Northern Colorado. Thomas Harding was there last year. Actually, he'll be the MC. Manny, that was fun hanging out with you last year. They bring in an old timer, which sounds crazy to say because these guys aren't that old in my head. I remember watching them as a kid. But they'll have an event on January 28th. It's called Friends of Baseball. Their website has not been updated, but you can find it on Facebook. Tim Raines will be there. I don't work for that. I have no association with it, but it's kind of a cool little thing. You can hear Tim Raines talk. They have, some charity events and some raffles and stuff like that. It's like $20, but there's also inside of it, even if you don't go into the actual event to grab some donuts and coffee. There we go. We got some links from Christopher Cohen. Nice. But so even if you don't actually go in to that event for $20 for free, I think you can still just hang out at that card show that they got going on. And it looks like that starts at about 10 a.m., maybe runs until about 2 o'clock. So again, Friends of Baseball is what it's called. Tim Raines is their guest. Their actual website has not been updated, but you can find some stuff on Facebook, and the information is there for you in our chat.
Former Denver Bear, Tim.
I was just going to say
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Denver Bear Hall of Famer. That's right.
Yeah.
I go to the breakfast every year and it's always a really fun event.
That's right. You were there too last year. That was fun. Clint Barnes is there. I mean, he does a clinic for young guys. So he usually, pops in just to say hi.
Does that every year?
Yeah. He's a nice guy. Yeah. I think I also saw that. That's a standard thing that they have for that. So I'm sure he'll be around and going to the event.
Anybody else? Open forum. Any questions, thoughts? Kurt, you want to talk about next week?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We had to cancel last minute on the Blake Street Tavern. I felt bad to do that to them, but it certainly made sense with the weather. So I just thought I'd see if there was any interest there. I checked with them. The room is available next Wednesday at noon. if we want to just have an informal gathering to talk baseball, no real agenda, but have some lunch and get the group together. She did say that's available and they'd love to host that. Anybody interested in that, light up the chat site if you are interested, and I'll schedule it. I'd definitely be there if anybody else would attend with me.
Shannon just brought something up. It's very close to my heart and close to Joe's. The National Ballpark Museum is absolutely awesome on Blake Street. Just awesome. They do fabulous stuff. They're always looking for volunteers, and they're always looking for somebody who gives a damn about ballparks and baseball. I always bring people there.
Okay, no, now you muted everybody, I think.
Thanks for that heads up, Shannon, because well, I lost it. Hold on here.
You're on now.
Am I on to inject something?
Yep.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
Okay, great, thanks. Dan, could you please go over briefly revenue stream for teams, percentage of television, percentage of live gate, percentage of concessions, parking, souvenirs, and other elements of revenue? We talk about 600 million for Ohtani, serious money, but it wouldn't be paid unless the team could afford it. Where does that money come from? And because you have a terrific insight on that.
Well, Greg, and by the way, Greg, thank you for that clip of what was the 62 All-Star?
62 All-Star game, Wrigley Field, second All-Star game, right?
It was awesome, absolutely awesome. I listened to more of it this morning and it was great. So regarding your question, I'd like to preface it by saying it is so complicated. I know when we did the agreement, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was on the committee, and those portions took months, literally months. So I'll dumb it down as much as I can. First thing I would suggest is go to the Major League Baseball Players Association website, which is mlbpa.org. They're a .org. And in English and in Spanish, they have the labor agreement, because you just can't find it. I mean, you can't find it in printed form, so you can find it on the website. And there are formulas, Greg, that are in there to really protect the clubs from themselves, also to identify income streams, because there's 30 different ways of doing business. You know, the regional television packages versus the ones that, you know, have a network, and all that stuff comes into play. The NFL pools their money differently than Major League Baseball does. So NFL teams, a GM friend of mine in the NFL tells me that the day they play their first game, they've already made money, that they can't lose money because of the way everything's set up. In Major League Baseball, there are revenue streams obtainable from all the network partners like Fox, ESPN, TBS, anybody who's broadcasting. That money is pooled 31 different ways. And that money is pooled for the 30 teams and then a central fund where the money is distributed from. Things like merchandising, an example, Manny brought it up about an hour ago. You know, if you are in Spokane, Washington, and you buy a Angels jersey with Ohtani's name on it, the Angels get 18% of that sale because that's their cut, because it's their player. If Doug and I are in Osaka, Japan, and we buy a Dustin Pedroia jersey, the Red Sox get 18% of that sale. So across the world, teams get their, and that's why they protect their logos, their licenses, their jerseys. That's why they go after Pirates, because they're not recouping that money. So that's another thing. But Major League Baseball when it comes to like the Fox deal, that is the most lucrative deal in Major League Baseball. So they cut that up 31 ways. Most teams can meet most of their payroll with that. But there's another component. And this is in the labor agreement. And I encourage you to look at it, be really insightful. There's 340 something pages in the labor agreement, but there's some pages that are more interesting than others. And this is one of them, because what they do is they specify how monetary deliveries get assigned and where they can go. But the really amazing thing, for me at least, is the revenue sharing portion, where the teams that aren't as well off, that regurgitate year after year, just mediocre to poor situations, those teams get put in a pool and they get some revenue sharing. So as a result, they are supposed to invest that in their club, in the baseball department, for effectively research and development, their minor league system, their scouting, their Dominican complex, things like that. That is something that teams look at very closely, because if you're Pittsburgh, you're Tampa Bay, you're Kansas City, you don't have the same revenue stream, but you have obtainable funds that make you relevant and also make you viable. That's how some of those teams win. Whenever anybody tells you market size, it's not market size, it's the person running the organization. Because you can win regardless of your market size. It's a matter of coming up with a model that's successful. I mean, all of us look at the Rays and realize that the Rays thrive, right? The Rays have an awful revenue stream. I mean, they closed their whole upper deck. I think there's 28,000 seats in the whole place. Yet year after year, they're elite because they have elite people running their team. If you have ineptitude in any business, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're not good. And I think that's what happens in the game is those excuses about small markets, Greg, it's not the small market. It's the people who are controlling their coffers, and bad people make bad decisions. But I would encourage you to look up MLBPA.org and really read through it. It is so complex, but the streams are such that teams make money. It's just that some teams choose not to spend it.
Dan, for you, anybody else that might answer this, first of all, one little piece of information, there are two teams that have public information, financial information about them, Toronto and Atlanta. So
right.
I don't know whether that's digestible in any way, but their books are open because they're publicly owned companies. But the thing I want to know is, have you seen before something that I think happened this year that might be different from previous years? And that is, you have one owner especially, but I think maybe three owners that have pretty much said, I don't really care if we make money or not. I'm willing to outspend my revenue streams and lose money. And that's San Diego, Philadelphia, and especially the Mets. And I have a little concern about the Mets, the owner who's last I heard worth the next three owners combined. But I mean, it'll only last 5 years because there'll be a new agreement. And if the owners are getting stung by Steve Cohen and other things, but I don't remember quite owners saying, I'm not going to evaluate my team's finances just pretty much on the team. I'm willing to lose money to win. Tell me what.
Haven't seen it as openly in this era since the luxury tax was instituted. But I think it's a radical transformation. And I think, you pointed out three clubs that are working that way. And I find it interesting that the Dodgers have put the brakes on a little bit. That's one of the reasons they were worried about Bauer. And they're close to the luxury tax. So no, Greg, haven't seen it. I'm sure the NL East teams and the other National League clubs are particularly worried having two teams in their division that have just made it really clear that, money's not an object. They're trying to win. And Middleton and Cohen are very aggressive. But I think, Greg, there's a big change in the landscape, and that is these teams are being bought for huge money. So they want a more immediate return on their investment than some of the teams did in the past. And as a result, with that, comes a little bit of a pedal to the metal on trying to win that has never existed before.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also, and maybe you can tell me if you think this is long-term or short-term, but the power is absolutely shifted to the East Coast and West Coast, and not all the West Coast, a little more consistently to the East Coast, but the Central, and now you look at market size, and you just said, well, market size isn't everything, but there are very few substantial market size teams in those Central divisions. The Cubs,
and there's a lot of poor regional sports networks that don't derive the same financial benefits that the East and West Coast teams do. If you take a look at the spending in the last 3 years by Central Division teams in both leagues, it's paltry compared to the other two sides of the country. And I think that's why there's so much parity in those two divisions, because nobody runs away and hides. Anybody else have anything? We're almost 2 hours in. I have a call at the top of the hour that
I got a quick question.
I can't use SABR as my excuse. So go ahead, Harry.
Yep. I read something the other day or saw it on MLB. There were Angelos, I think his son, the Orioles owner, with some press conference or something. Somebody asked him about moving the team, and he denied they were going to move the team. That came out of nowhere. I was kind of surprised by that, and I didn't know that anything was afoot, let alone why somebody would ask the son of the owner about moving the Orioles. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've kind of run away and hide in Baltimore, and they really don't go public. They're very, very difficult. The old man is not well, so the two sons are at odds with each other, and it's kind of a difficult situation. I think Dan Connolly is one of the best writers in the game, and he and Angelos got into it a little bit at that press conference. There was some evasion in there, which was interesting, but I have heard nothing about the Orioles. I think there's two prime teams that could move before expansion, and I don't think expansion will take place until the two teams are rectified, and that's Tampa Bay and Oakland. I don't think they'll go into an expansion situation until those two teams are figured out. And when they do, I think you're going to see Portland, Charlotte, Nashville get involved. But I thought the discussion between Dan Connolly and Angelos had a lot of quirky turns. And so, Harry, I agree with you. There were a lot of no road sign discussion items. And I found it absolutely fascinating discussion. Anything else? And then we're going to call it a day. Question from Chris: if the teams relocate to a city with a minor league team, if that team becomes a big league team, they get relief, but they also have to move because of territorial rates. So for a big league team to come in, teams like Charlotte, teams like Nashville would be affected adversely, and subsequently there would be two new AAA clubs, and there would also be two teams looking for new partners. Probably a double-A team would become. Yeah, I think Vegas has a really strong possibility, but I think Vegas gets Oakland. I think Oakland moves and Oakland moves to Vegas. On that note, I'm going to call it a day. I appreciate everybody joining us. We had a great turnout today. Keep in mind the Sunday, February 5th date. Keep in mind the situations that were brought up today with Patrick next Tuesday. with Kurt in an informal non-chapter meeting on Wednesday. And then again, our next meeting, our next chapter meeting in person will be the third week of February. I hope everybody has a really good week.
Dan,
Yeah,
can I ask one quick question? Do you have a
Yeah.
time for that February 5th meeting?
noon.
Noon on February 5th. Thank you.
And if there's any change, we'll make you aware. We'll send you all the information, the location, the coordinates and everything. You'll have it all. All right.
Thank
Everybody
you.
have a super week. Stay healthy and good luck with the snow. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.